Good morning, everybody. We're live, raw and real at Drink Up Rain, Shine, Snow. Adam and I will be here every week. I guess Adam's played hooky a couple of times, so I forgive him. But you should tell your beautiful wife or spouse that you need to arrive at these things. Very important. I want to welcome a special guest, Roger Lee. No relation to Bruce Lee. We talked about that yesterday. But I think Roger has a little bit of story to share. But Roger's an attorney in a law firm out in Los Angeles, and he specializes in, and I'll let you tell your story, Roger, but specializes in CPG, apparel, food, and beverages. Adam, I always talk. Adam's been giving me a bunch of attorneys lately, but Roger and I found each other. So I have my counsel right here today to walk us through. But welcome, Roger, to Drink Up. Tell us
Thanks,
a
and
little bit about,
good morning to
introduce
you
yourself to
guys.
everybody.
Yeah, so again, Roger Lee with Stubbs Alderton and Marker Lee, the 45-ish person law firm in Los Angeles. And as Sam mentioned, I do work with a lot of CPG founders and also middle market companies that's been operating for a little while and maybe don't have enough resources to sort of hire their own attorney in-house. So we become that attorney just outside of the company. And we help handle the daily grind stuff that comes up, NDAs, distribution agreements, employment issues that they come up, and litigation, which hopefully doesn't come up, but unfortunately does sometimes.
Wow.
We
That's a
also help with,
scary word, litigation. What does litigation mean?
litigation means somebody's very mad at you, or maybe you're very mad at somebody else.
I talk to my partner, Alicia Vargo, all the time. I'm like, hey, we got to make sure that we protect ourselves, and have certain things in place. Well, tell us a little bit about before we get started. You know how I roll, right? So I'm kind of thinking of me as like the pitcher. So actually, someone told me that I'm like a pitcher. So I'm going to be, asking a lot of questions,
Great
and then think of
analogy.
Adam. Adam is the thinker of the team. He's probably going to come across the screen and say, "Stop calling me the thinker," but you are a thinker.
No, I love this compliment, but the analogy of you as a pitcher for this podcast is fantastic. And whoever said it was spot on.
Yeah, it was funny. It was on the with Firebelly marketing with my friend Duncan Alney. I
Oh,
would love to
sure.
get you on that podcast as well, Roger. I'm sure Duncan's watching this morning. He'll probably want to talk to you as well.
I love it.
But tell us a little bit about your journey. Other than I know you're not related to Bruce Lee, which I was very disappointed, by the way, about that, but that's okay.
See, now you're telling me that I should have named my son Bruce Lee, just so I can say I am related to Bruce Lee.
Exactly. We talked about that yesterday, actually. So you could always like throw in, change a name or whatever.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I work with a lot of CPG companies. I have a lot of fun doing it. The thing that drew me to CPG companies is the founders really, and the fact that I can hold and understand the product very easily and understand why it's good for me or why it's good for the planet. My career as an attorney started off actually working with renewable energy, and I like renewable energy sort of for the same reason. I felt like I was saving the world, and I can drive out to the desert, or in California, it's to the desert, to go see the wind farms we're building or to see the solar farms we're building, right? But you didn't quite get the interaction you get with CPG founders who really have a passion for what they're doing and oftentimes have a really big story behind it, right? And it's that is just very addictive, and that enthusiasm you build off of it. You can't help but feel passionate for their project when you're working on it. And that's just kept me going. And so now I've grown into my own practice. As you said, we work on a lot of apparel, food, and beverage are sort of the main items that we do, but we also work with pet products, which is a very hot item right now, and cosmetics as well.
Yeah, I have my two Aussies. They join me on the podcast every week, and we herd ourselves into the office in their lane here. So I would imagine that pet foods are very big. I actually have a friend, Barbara, I think Barbara out of New Jersey or New York, but she has a little pet food. Lick You Silly Dog Treats, actually. I have to connect you up with her. And she's, believe it or not, she's in the apparel business as well,
Yeah.
which is
Is
kind
that
of,
apparel for pets?
maybe there's a parallel there to your point. Well, tell us, so your journey began actually your journey began with entrepreneur parents, right?
That's
So
right.
talk about a little bit about that. So you have an option. I think to be an attorney and have your own practice, you have to be, you are an entrepreneur. You can talk about how they shaped you to get to that point.
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, my parents have always owned hotels. Nothing big and fancy. Think of sort of like a Best Western, maybe, right? We're not the Hiltons, all right? And a single best Western, by the way, not the whole chain, right? But, I saw how hard they work and I saw how much they loved it, right? If I had to be honest, my father loved it more than my mother, but I saw how much they loved it. Also very important, I saw the security that it gave us, right? And I saw its ability to have a lot less family vacations and things like that. But I also saw how much work it was. I mean, you're running a hotel, it's 24/7, 365. It doesn't close, right? And your employees, they want holidays off, but the hotel stays open. And I saw, that amount of work. And even though it was a lot of work, it was very rewarding for them too. And as a kid, I would go in and help change sheets and move furniture and so I pitched in also, right? Child labor is okay when it's family. Okay. So I'll just put that out there. But that also sort of, I think that instilled that worth ethic that's required for entrepreneurship. And quite frankly, also required if you want to build your own practice as a lawyer. So that really stuck with me. And I was telling you this, Stam, earlier. When I was younger, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I needed to do something, and becoming a lawyer was sort of the jack of all trades, right? You can become a lawyer and sort of do anything after that you wanted to. And so I thought maybe one day I would do business or something. But at the end of the day, I love doing law. I love helping people, and law seems to be the way that I can help people the best.
You started at Berkeley and poli-sci, right?
Yes.
And then somehow you went from Berkeley to Boston. Was there a reason why you went clear across the U.S. from your home roots to Boston? Was that like a particular program that you wanted to be part of? Or hey, that was the only university that accepted you, which I'm just joking. But hey, that was real fact here, everybody. I get into college, I had to go to summer school to get in. And then literally the professor lined us up and said, look to the left and look to the right. Y'all will be gone. And I think there was like 30 of us, and I think only 2 of us survived summer and kept on going.
Wow. Yeah, for me,
my roommate, he might watch this one day, but he went to the rock quarry every day, and he never moved his books. And he goes, man, I don't know why I flunked out. I got a 0.0. I said, because you never went to class. Anyway, I digressed. So you arrived at Boston. Why Boston, or how did it take you out there for your beginning of your journey as a corporate attorney?
Yeah, so lawyers, if you want to stereotype us, we are a bit risk averse. And I actually do kind of fall into that bucket. I am a bit risk averse as well. And that actually shows up in my decision to go to Boston. And here's the reasoning. Up until I graduated Berkeley, I spent my entire life in California, born and raised in Los Angeles, right? And even today, I'm practicing in Los Angeles. Well, law school I saw as my last chance to move out of California with a clear path back to California. If I hated it, 3 years out of law school, I'm done. I'll move back. If I love it, I'll find a job and stay out there, right? What ended up happening was that I came back, and then the firm I was with asked me to move to New York. And at the time, I was still single, so I was like, yeah, I'll move to New York. That's an adventure, right? I already have a job lined up. There's nothing I need to do other than find an apartment. So I moved to New York for a few years. I always tell people, I loved working in New York because the work is interesting, but I hated living in New York because being born and raised in LA, I was at 15 and a half, I had a permit, and at 16, I had a car. In New York, subways are great and they get you everywhere except for getting you out of the city. And so I felt sort of imprisoned in the city in a way. So after a few years in New York, I had to come back to LA again.
So the journey, so you got back to LA. So this isn't your first firm that you were with. Tell us a little bit about how you arrived where you're at today, and you're a full-on partner in the firm that you're in now.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I started off. Many people in my firm start off in sort of what we call the big law, which is the big multinational law firms. If you're a lawyer, you know the names. If you're not a lawyer, all the names kind of sound out, right? And so a lot of these law firms, they're 1,000, 2,000 attorneys scattered across the world. And so one of these firms I was at was a 3,000 person law firm, top 5 by numbers, right? And that of a very large New York presence, as all these firms do. And they had told me essentially at the time, like, look, you're, I forget how old I was at that time, but I was, a 9th or 10th year attorney. And they told me, if you want to make partner, you have to get in a client time, client facing time. All the clients are banks or private equity firms, and they're all based in New York. You're sitting in Los Angeles, you have no clients down the street. And so they say, you want to make a partner, move to New York. And that's sort of the genesis of my moving to New York. But that also sort of pinged in my head, well, if I want to be a partner, I need to get to know private equity firms, the Blackstones, the KKRs, and you get to know the banks, right? The banks that are investing and financing these huge projects. I didn't think I was ever going to be that guy, but I could be that guy that knew people like my parents, entrepreneurs, family businesses, whether it's tech startups, whether it's hospitality, or CPG, right? And find that network and build a practice out of that. Now, the problem, though, is if you're a tech startup or if you're a CPG startup, you're cash strapped. You're trying to get your products out there. You're trying to market yourself. You don't want to pay $1,000 for an attorney or $1,500 for an attorney, right? But these big law firms, because of the overhead they have and because of how much they're paying their lawyers, they can't sort of be nimble and flexible like that with the startups. So, which is interesting because that's actually how my firm started with the founders. Our founders came from Aiken Gump, another one of these 3,000 person law firms that just didn't have the space for a startup practice. No fault of Aiken. Aiken's a really great firm, but they just didn't have the space for a startup practice with more flexible fee arrangements. And so, that's what drew me to Stubbs Alderton was that, hey, these guys, they're entrepreneurs and they want entrepreneurs as clients.
Interesting. So that's how you arrive where you're at currently.
That's right.
So a question, maybe Adam, you take the question from the audience. Can you see it? Can you see the? Why don't you take that and walk what this particular person, which we know, is asking about Alicia?
Yeah. Shout out to Alicia. Good morning. So she asked, make sure I capture this right without too much or too little. What might the unexpected pitfalls be that small to mid-sized businesses need to be mindful of? From which I assume she means from just talking about your Swiss Army knife, legal, multiple angles perspective, right? What have you seen?
Yeah, so there are two things immediately come to mind that have been issues that I see all the time, quite frankly. One is your partners, right? Most of the time, sometimes you're a solo entrepreneur, but a lot of times you have partners. And when things are going good, things are great. But when things are going bad, oh boy, it could get messy, right?
This is my partner talking. She's going to be calling you. Okay, I got this partner named Sam Anderson, but keep on going, sir.
Well, and that's when you're going to wish that you had talked to an attorney before to get your partnership agreement in place so that everything's agreed to, right? And the other issue is, you start a company with your partner, the company's not worth anything yet, but then you hit it big and suddenly you can't decide how to split the company. And it's a little late to split the company after it's worth $5, $10, $20, $30 million, because then you're trying to figure out, okay, well, no, I did, X, Y, Z, but they did A, B, and C. Which one's worth more? And whoever did X, Y, Z is going to say X, Y, Z is worth more. Whoever did A, B, C is going to say A, B, C is worth more. And the other thing to be very careful about, especially with CPG companies, is brand protection. The name of the game is building brand equity. No matter what product you're pushing, you want to build brand equity. One of the ways to build brand equity is by, well, first of all, you have to have a brand. And secondly, you have to protect that brand from other people, right? Filing for a trademark or a service mark isn't that difficult. You can find all the instructions on the USPTO website. The issue is when you do it wrong, USPTO is not going to tell you. So you make out your filings by yourself and you think that you have the protection you want, but you actually don't. And that's unfortunately an issue that we run into in the past where a founder trying to save money, they've done the filings themselves, but they've done it incorrectly. They filed it for the wrong category. And so it doesn't give them they have a trademark, but it doesn't give them any protection for what they're actually doing. In my most recent case, luckily it was no harm, no foul. We refiled and sort of corrected everything and it was fine. But worst case scenario, if somebody comes in and takes your trademark, and it doesn't have to be nefarious. It can just be somebody who happens to think that, that Vastits is a great name. I'm going to use that name. And not really
so we should trademark that.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Okay, I'm employing your services live right now, but I don't know if I can afford the fees you told me. So we got to work out some type of trading agreement. I got some really good stuff here, like even, products or whatever. So, but all serious, we probably should talk about that.
No, and the trademark work actually is a flat fee because it's we know how much filing trademarks cost. We know how much the filing fees are with the USPTO. So it's a flat fee arrangement. I don't know the cost offhand, but it's a few $100s. You got to do a search that's also a few $100s, but that's really about it.
All right, well, do it. I've employed your services for real, so just get at it today. And let Alicia know. You can see our Bev Assets logo on LinkedIn, and we bought the URL. I thought if you got the domain, I don't need to do anything else, right? It's all good. I got the domain.
Well, you do have, and let me sort of preface this by saying I am not a trademark attorney, although I do have trademark partners. You do have a certain level of protection because you are the first one to use it commercially. But that also means that, and what's interesting is, I'm sure this is settled case law. I just don't know what it is. You have the website, so you have a national, maybe even international reach. You certainly have the protection of a common law trademark in Minnesota. I am not certain that you have that same protection in California or New York.
We are incorporated, or our business is set up in Minnesota. Jeff, I'm going to butcher your name, but Jeff has a question. He said he makes a comment. Also, a thorough search needs to be done by a company like Thompson & Thompson, not just Googling. I'm not sure. Jeff, maybe explain what you're asking, or maybe Roger.
Yeah, I think what he's talking about is what we call a knockout search. And that's just to make sure that before we file for your trademark Bev Assets, that nobody in Seattle or Miami or somewhere else has already used that name. Because if that name is already on file with the USPTO, then you can't file for that name. You can fight them for the name, right? But you can't file for the name. It'll just get rejected, basically.
I know Adam's thinking, so you can come in and ask a question in a second. I just have one more question. So I have these friends. I'm not going to name them, but you probably should meet them. They're in LA, Tiffany and Juan. They have a tea, yerba mate, and it's really cool tea. Maybe I kind of gave them up just now. But anyway, I think there was a rather large company actually started using that, but they have a trademark on it. And I know they talk to trademark attorneys or whatever, but it seems like sometimes what I've heard is you could have this name, but people could actually use it. And if you don't file a grievance or to stop them from doing it, they can actually steal it from you. Is that true?
Well, and again, not a trademark attorney, but with a term like yerba mate, if that's what they're trademarked, that may be difficult to enforce because I believe yerba mate is just a leaf, right? It's just the actual plant.
Yeah, it's a leaf.
Right. So it's hard to say I have a trademark on oak tree because there's oak trees everywhere, and right, you can use the term oak tree for anything. Same thing with yerba mate. But if they have the trademark on it, I think that's great, and that's a great first step. But you're right, you do have to defend it when you find out somebody using it.
Right. If you don't defend it, it basically could just go through, and then they're like, well, a year later, you didn't say anything. I've been building this or whatever, and they can take it over. So there's a lot of, I don't know what the word is, but bad people out there that will take advantage of it. Okay, Adam, I see that. See, you notice that Adam, when he starts to squint and look up, this is a signal he's ready for it.
Sam Ever, the astute observer. So I'm curious. He talks about trademarking the brand. I talk to a lot of people that will say comments like, oh, or you'll hear things, even just, because we all become nerds and we end up reading the backs of labels, much to our partner's chagrin when we're grocery shopping, right? You see proprietary blend, right? Or, unique formulations. And don't get me wrong, sometimes they are. Sometimes, but most of the time, it's all common components that we're all familiar with. They're just put together in whatever the order happens to be for that particular brand. So I guess what's the question been like, or what questions have you gotten from brand owners related to stuff like that? And how do you advise them on the best way to manage that without, I guess, overdoing it, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So a lot of the question comes out to, well, what does make your blend special? Which I think, Adam, you're sort of mentioning as well, right? How is different from other people? Is it the blend itself? Is it maybe how you're blending it, right? That might be something special too. But then if the blend is proprietary and is special, the other question is, okay, well, do you want to file for the blend? Because once you file for the blend, there's some information out there. So you may not want to, you can still say you have a proprietary blend, but you may not want to file anything to protect it because the best protection is keeping it secret.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's part of the reason I asked. And how does that play in with, and again, it happens less now, but I used to get a lot of questions about, or brand owners would be very the term intellectual property would come up constantly, right? Oh, this is the IP of my brand. And I always had to chuckle very politely because, again, it was every now and again I would catch one that I'm like, okay, this is truly unique. I've not seen this before, which doesn't mean nobody else has, but I've not. But a lot of times it was just their own way. It was household in the commercial sense materials, but just combined in certain volumes and dosages that led to their product that was unique and was doing well, people enjoyed. So when is the suggestion you make for brands around intellectual property kind of that same as what you just said, or is there anything else you'd add given that verbiage?
I think it's still the same that I said. You have to think about how much of your blend, the information about your blend you want out there. That's different from the IP of a trademark where, the name Bev Assets, you don't want anybody using that as a business name.
Sure,
right?
sure. Yeah. Interesting.
And everybody knows, and you want everybody to know Bev Asset. You don't want everybody to know what's in your proprietary blend or the ratios in your blend.
We do have a proprietary blend, by the way, in Bev Assets. So I'll share with you offline, Roger, but you got to sign an NDA and you could probably just draw it up and it needs to be moved.
There you go.
All right. So I'm just trying to impress you. I'm not an attorney, full disclosure. So one of the things I think you specialize is in M&A work, mergers and acquisitions. Is that true?
Yes, sir. That's right.
So from taking the beverage business, because obviously that's what Adam and I assets is about, and drink up, obviously the word drink up. So what is everybody I talk to, they're like, hey, I want to test it. I simplify this, but they say, I want to test it. I want to build it. I want to scale it. And I want to sell it. And everybody wants to 10X it, right? Everybody's like, I'm going to 10X it in 2 years. I'm going to 10X it here. I'm going to be the next Tito's and the whole bit. So what is the journey like, from your point of view, and when do they need to enlist your services to actually make those things happen?
Yeah. So one thing I like to say is that we are your cradle to the grave attorneys, meaning, we will help you form your company as early as that, and we will help you sell your company and sort of everything in between. So when do you call a lawyer? Before you form the company. And you can form the company yourself. That's fine. And, if there's anything we need to fix in your organization documents, we can do that. That's not a whole lot of work anyway. You want to talk to attorneys and you want to talk to accountants early. Accountants are also very, very important because you want to make sure you get all the tax benefits you possibly can. And there are a lot of tax benefits that I have an inkling of, but I can't fully explain to you, which is why you need an accountant. And they'll help. We can talk with them and figure out what's the best way to set up your company. And that's important because that affects, year down the line when you're selling the company, that affects your taxes when you're selling the company. So you have to keep all that in mind. Plus you want to get all the tax credits and whatnot that you might be able to apply for. So we come in, we help form the company. You have an idea. We'll talk to you about what you want to do, how you want to do it. Are you going to raise funds from friends and family? Are you going to raise funds from venture capital? Do you know people in the food industry that are interested in your idea that might partner with you, at least be a financial partner, not an operating partner? How do you see this company running? When do you need the money? Do you need the money right off the bat because you already had your idea, you're ready to go into production? Or are you still testing your product? So you're just in your home lab, in your home kitchen, you're working on your formulation. That's not going to take a lot of capital. But or you think that in 6 to 12 months, you'll be ready for production. And then you'll need to scale up.
What you're describing is, sorry to interrupt, but that's how I roll, by the way. What you're describing is you keep people away from the landmines.
We try to. But quite frankly, a lot of the entrepreneurs are very headstrong and they just want to go, go, go. And I don't blame them.
Well, they love landmines. They search them out.
Well, everything I got LinkedIn this morning for 2. I usually get a link. Hey, Alicia, I hope you're listening. I'm only on LinkedIn in the morning and at night. During the day, I'm actually doing my job as your partner. I want to make sure you know that. But when I was on the LinkedIn this morning, everybody's like, hit go, just go, get on the high dive, jump in the deep end. That seems to be a theme for sure.
Well, you've probably heard the term, break things and apologize later.
Yeah.
And that works most of the time, right? We come in and clean up messes, but sometimes you make such a mess that it can't be cleaned up, and that's going to be a problem. At the same time, you don't want fear of legal ramifications to kill your business, right? So there's a bit of a balancing act there.
Well, I love it that basically you actually do it from A to Z. So I never thought about that. We were talking about this yesterday. Actually, you were walking me through that. And that's why I posed a question. I mean, how I've created a couple companies that have Health and Life Shield of Minnesota, Stream of Thought. It was just like, hey, I figured out somehow through legal.zoom, you can go get your, set up your company. And then with Alicia, she taught me about going, we have an accountant. We do have an accountant. And I think she has a couple of attorneys on a speed dial. Now we have you for sure, because I can call you anytime now. You said that, right? You won't feel
Absolutely.
I have a quick question.
Like you said, right, Sam, pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone.
That's funny.
Just pick up
He is a fan. Just pick up the phone. He is indeed a fan. Roger, I'm curious.
I got that from my friend Michael. He's like, you need to put that in the tagline. So Michael, if you ever watch this, I don't know if you give me your time of day, Michael, but if you do, he's my sensei. And the master of what he does, and I call him sensei. But yeah, so mergers and acquisitions. So I interrupted you. So anything else that people need to really know in that area? I'm a brand. You've walked me through every step to think about it, and you're going to get me to cradle to grave. Is that what you said?
Yes, cradle to grave.
Cradle to grave. Okay.
The thing to think about for selling the company is, while you're running the company, even if I'm by your side the entire time, while you're running the company, there are going to be skeletons that you're going to brush under the rug, right? Whether it's a partner issue, whether it's employment issues, whether it's inventory issues, it can be anything, right? All of those skeletons are coming out when you're selling the company, right? The buyer is going to dig into your company with a fine-tooth comb and figure out what's. First of all, let me say this. They're going to come to you and say, hey, Sam, I want to buy your beverage company for $50 million. That's how much it's worth. And you're going to be like, oh, that's terrific. Let me sign on the dotted line. And then they're going to say, okay, open up your books and let me see what you got. Right?
Is that called the cap table?
The cap table is who owns what. Okay. So the cap table will say, Sam, you own 99% of the company. Adam, you own 1%. Did you know that, Adam? You only own 1% of the company?
It's more than I owned before we got on this call, so I'm good with it.
Hey, congratulations, Adam. You're 1% owner.
But the buyer will look for everything wrong, and they'll tell you, hey, Sam, we see this issue back from 2016. We're going to have to knock you down to $40 million. Oh, Sam, there's this other issue we see from 2015 with these employees. This is some liability we don't want. We're going to knock you down to, $32 million. They'll keep on going like that. So, but that's also why you need accountants and lawyers on your side to say, no. This issue, we took care of it back in 2018. There's no liability here. You don't have to worry about this. We need to keep the price at $50 million. The other thing to think about also is when you're getting ready to sell, what's your story? The buyers want to hear your story. And the buyers want to hear not only why you're leaving, but also why they should buy it. And they should buy it because this company is a $50 million company today. But if you look around you, you'll know that in the next 2 years, this company can very easily be $80 million. It just needs a little more money from, a bigger buyer, a bigger company to sort of inject more capital into it or do more marketing, something that maybe Sam doesn't have resources for, but we know that a bigger company can do.
When that stuff goes down, though, so when you're in the room and having that negotiation, is it attorney to attorney having these discussions with the founders kind of sitting back and listening, kind of like in the movies? Like you're speaking for me?
Well, so we will talk about liability. And that will be the attorney talking when we talk about sort of growth and, commercial viability. Sometimes that's the accountant, or sometimes if you have an investment banker. So we often use investment bankers to help market your company because you may not know who wants to buy your company, or you may think that you may think off the top of your head, oh, PepsiCo would be interested. We should just approach PepsiCo. There's a whole bunch of other companies that might also be interested in your company that you don't even realize are interested, right? These investment bankers will go out and try to find the right buyer, whether it's a PE firm or it's a strategic, right? And sort of connect you together. And that way they maximize the value of your company.
Yes, but so, part of the journey is raising funds, and you talked about friends and family, and I'm associated with a couple of brands that we're in that journey right now. And this particular brand, I think they're going to be able to raise, a couple $100,000 to get going through I don't know what you call it, maybe a venture capitalist or what. I don't know who they are, but anyway, the company I'm involved with, they've made the presentation. Next Wednesday is kind of the final presentation to get it going. And then once they get that funding, they're going to go back to friends and family because they feel like they have a better story to go back to friends and family to say, hey, look, we've raised 200,000. Now we're going to, give equity in the company for you to participate as well. Is that a strategy or like, it seems like I talked to some people, they raised millions of dollars and I'm like, I'm on this journey with this particular brand. And it's a great brand, like corporate executives, but they're struggling a little bit to get the money raised. This seems
well. So let me start off by saying raising money for a tech startup is very different from raising money from a CPG startup. And part of that is because tech startups, they're typically asset light. You have a couple of computers, maybe you probably work remotely now, right? But with a CPG beverage company or food company, lots of assets, lots of capital. You got kitchens, you got equipment, you got bottles, right? You got liquid, you got shipping
that's
costs.
value, you're saying? Assets are value?
Assets could be value, but assets
could be liabilities.
Exactly. I mean, you can have spoiled inventory very quickly, right? Especially with beverages. So that's an issue. And the scalability is also an issue. As CPG companies, you can scale, but let's face it, it's much easier to scale a couple of lines of code than it is bottles of herbal tea, right?
That's what you were talking to me a couple of weeks ago, Adam. To remain nameless, scaling a particular brand.
You got it. Bingo.
Yeah.
Yep.
So once you have a lead investor, it's always easier to get more funding because you can say, oh, XYZ company, venture capital firm believes in us, so you should too, right? They're smart people. But I think it's interesting about your company here that they're going to VC first, then going back to friends and family. What we typically see is that you go to friends and family first because your first round is probably the most risky round for an investor because you don't have a proven product. You're barely on market or you're trying to get on market. And you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know how high flying you can be, right? So you go to friends and family first, then you go to venture capital or, strategic investors or angel investors. I also wonder what is the form of investment that they're going to get from the VCs. Typically the first sort of early round, you see either what we call a SAFE, which is simple agreement for future equity, or a convertible note, which really is just a promissory note that can convert into equity upon a certain event. In both those cases, a SAFE and a convertible note, it's just borrowed money and no equity until you do another raise. For vocabulary's sake, we'll call the first raise the friends and family round, we'll call the second raise your seed round. So at the friends and family round, you, Sam, will own 100% of the company and you will continue to own 100% of the company after you finish your round. So once you raise your, $500K on the friends and family round, you spent that money or you nearly spent that money, you're ready for your seed round. You go into this, you can go back to your friends and family and you can go to venture capital at that point and tell them, look, I have a proven product. I'm on market. There's a growth trajectory here. This is why you should invest in me. And then they invest in you with money, but you give them equity at that point. And when you give them equity on the seed round, that triggers the SAFE or the convertible note to become equity as well, along with the seed round people, right? So that's typically how we see it. So that the fact that you're going first to VC, then back to friends and family, make sure you're getting the best terms with the VC because in general, and speaking in broad generalities here, SAFEs are better for the company and convertible notes are better for the investor. So see how you're sort of raising that money.
Wow, that's really interesting. Let me ask you this. So I talked to a lot of founders, I'm sure Adam does too, that they bootstrap things. Is it better to bootstrap or is it better to raise money? Or is there somewhere in between?
I wish there was an easy answer for that one.
Journey. I know some brands like, I've been doing this for 10 years. Sorry, but is that it's like at some point you got to get investors to get this scale, right? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, there's no simple answer for that, right? There have been companies that bootstrap their entire time and then they can scale slowly and then sell, right? And if that works, awesome, because what that means is that you keep 100% of equity, you keep 100% of the control, and you keep 100% of the profits, right? But oftentimes that's not really doable because you do need more cash to scale to find distributors. You're going from, let's say, 1,000 pallets to 10,000 pallets to 100,000 pallets. right? How do you do that without being paid until 60 days after you delivered the goods, or even later than that? But you got
Well,
to
that's a real
make the
problem. I was on a
goods.
brand Adam knows about where they had nationwide distribution in 38 states. Now, and Bevmo, Total Wine and More, they had like 15 wholesalers, but when the wholesaler arrived to go pick up the goods weren't available. You know why? Because they didn't have enough money to produce it. And they're like, well, we'll be ready in 4 weeks. And that seems, Adam, to be a problem in our category of a lot of brands. They're not, the production schedule is when a distributor is ready to buy or the customer, they can't fill the order. And that is death to a brand. Because
Absolutely.
that shelf space that sits out in the marketplace, there's 18 brands waiting behind them to get on that shelf space. So if it goes out of stock, it's literally the old Procter & Gamble saying, or Progressive Grocer is out of stock, out of business. And it really, I've been doing this for 40 years and I think that still rings true. So yeah, if you're not well capitalized, that's a problem.
Yeah, I want to use this. I have a quick story, and I won't name names because he hasn't told me I could. There's a brand I'm working with who, he's got a few $100,000 of investment. And even for me, even as the guy who's introduced him to a few places, helped him, I've been working with him for a little bit. Even knowing that he had that investment, he said, hey, I'm not sure how much I can pay you. Now, typically, right, you might look at that and go, I'm offended. You're like, you just told me you have money coming in, and then you're telling me you're not sure how much you can pay me. And in fact, I felt quite the opposite. I was like, good, pretend you're broke. Yeah. Pretend you have $5 in the bank, because otherwise you might pay me for 3 months and then you'll be out of business. And I'd rather not. Right. So I like, that's my ethos for any brand that's out there listening. Have money, but pretend you don't. Right. So to that end, Roger, I'm curious, and I know this is a difficult question in the way I'm going to frame it, but to Sam's point, when we talk to like the dreamers, the very early on, I mean, if it's friends and family money, they're actually a step beyond who I'm talking about. It's like, hey, I've been a good little saver and I've got 20 grand and I want to do something, right? Like that's who I'm referring to with this question. So money's super tight. They're very conscious of it, but I agree with you. And I think Sam does too, obviously. There's still obviously a need, for all the reasons you mentioned, to get a lawyer involved in the early day setup, right? Lest things go well and get big and then you have a problem because things weren't structured right. So if you had to, this is the parameter that's going to be difficult. For a brand like that, if you had to put a list of like 5 things or 3 or whatever the number you think is effective is, it would pay it. You're right. That they would pay a lawyer for. And I'm thinking about stuff like, okay, clearly an NDA, clearly if they have multiple owners, obviously there's a partnership agreement, clearly, but like, what's the short list of things like, hey, if you do nothing else, do this to start, and then we can do review co-packer contracts and stuff. We do all that down the road, but do at least these X number of things. Like, what would those be?
So let me start off the answer by saying, our firm, Stubbs Allerton, we realize a lot of entrepreneurs, whether it's CPG or tech, have the same issue, right? And so that's why we have actually something we call the startup package. It's a flat fee package. Lawyers typically charge by the hour, and we charge by the hour as well, but we have a flat fee package. The idea behind this package is for $7,500, which is still real money, but for $7,500, we're going to set you up with a company that once we put these package of documents together, you're ready to just go and operate your business.
Wow, that's like the best $7,500 anybody can spend. Can we make sure, Roger, that we provide that information so we can share it with everybody?
Yes. So the startup package.
Really you guys are picking up why I asked this question. I was hoping you got something
put
like that.
Put that in the text, but also send it to me too if you could type in how they get a hold of you or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just briefly on the startup package, it includes formation, it includes your operating partnership agreement, it includes NDAs, it includes an employment contract that, you sort of fill in the blanks when you're ready to hire somebody, right? An independent contractor agreement, because sometimes you don't need an employee, you just need a contractor. So we have that form ready for you. So you just fill in the blanks and you're ready to go.
Adam has to be calling you after this, setting up some appointments.
Yeah.
This is exactly why I asked. I swear.
Yeah. The startup package also includes a stock option agreement, which typically the tech companies really use. CPG companies might want to use also, but it's helpful when you want to fill in a CMO or COO position, right? You give them some stock options. And very importantly, a PIIA, which is a proprietary information invention agreement. And what that basically says is when you're working for the company, whether you are Sam, the founder, or Adam, employee number 2, when you're working for the company, anything you invent or anything that you discover
Sure.
is the company's property, not your personal property.
Yeah.
So this whole package is, we set it up so that, and we do all the state filings that you need to do. I don't think there's any federal filing generally, but the state filing you need to do so that you're just ready to just go. With these documents, you can go open your bank account and go run your business. But so the items that are very important to start off with: brand protection, IP protection. That's where you build it. Going back to brand equity, that's where you build your brand equity, right? And so that PIIA, super important. That trademark work, super important. Get that stuff done, because without that, you can build your business and then find out you can't use your name and you have to rebrand. That's terrible for business.
So this is called the pacifier, by the way. So you're in the cradle. You're going to give them the pacifier to get them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Roger, to that end, and Sam's right. Like, I'm absolutely gonna, please share the info. But even if you don't, I'm gonna start, nudging folks your way for that, because right, $7,500 is not nothing. But in the grand scheme of things, if again, conversations I know we all have, right? Brand owners look and go, oh, $7,500. Didn't you tell me you want to sell this business in 5 or 10 years? Yeah. I'm assuming you want to sell it for millions. Ideally. Okay. So is 7,500 really that much money? Like, figure it out or don't, but like, let's, you know what I mean? So my final question to that point for now is there any, in the CPG, specifically beverage space, is there any product category that you don't work with? Meaning, like, I talk to everybody from functional non-alcs to alcoholic seltzers to THCs to functional mushrooms to psychedelic mushrooms. Is there any type of those that you don't work with, just so I know who not to send your way?
No, we work with everybody. I really enjoy working with non-alc right now, because that's obviously a very hot area. We've done ready-to-drink beverages as well. In fact, I'm drinking right now adaptogen coffee, because I got hooked on it last year and now they're hitting it really big. And so, when I can find it, I love it. Yeah. So we do everything under the sun. We can take cannabis or, THC products also. There's some issues with federal and state laws there, but it doesn't really affect us too much. Funny story about that, actually. Not in the beverage category, but we did have a medical marijuana client. And those were sort of earlier on. I don't know if this still happens today, but when they pay us, the founder would actually come into our office with a suitcase full of money, because they don't use banks.
Wait, yeah.
Can you repeat that again, Roger?
The client, when they needed to pay their invoices, they come to pay our fees. They come into the office once a month with a suitcase of money.
Wow.
It reminds me of the show, I'm sure you've heard of it, if nothing else, the show Lincoln Lawyer, right? There's a scene where they get paid in gold bars.
Wow.
And they're looking at them going, cool, but what the hell do I do with this? Right? Like, I've got to go. Right?
I doubt my uncle will watch this, but I was talking to a couple of my friends that are producers. They do stuff on Netflix and stuff, and great friends, by the way, that I've gotten to know over the last couple weeks. But my Uncle Lawton moved marijuana across the from like frickin' Florida to Ohio. But he went to prison for 10 years, did 10-year sentences, by the way. He only got out in 10. But anyway, he even had like a briefcase full of $20 million. And they were moving semis of marijuana. Right now it's legal, which is amazing. So that surprised me. So it's going to be a future Netflix show coming soon to you. But anyway, just to kind of wrap up. So, with the last few minutes we have remaining, we, have about 10 minutes or so. Roger, is there anything that you just want to share? Any thoughts you want to share with everybody out there that is watching this, that's a founder or running a company, things that they need to know that you do as a firm and you individually, that where you can help them?
Yeah. So I think we've sort of touched upon the main issues, which is, again, brand protection, IP protection, and, agreeing with your partners what your partnership looks like from day one. Right. The other thing is, so going back to the startup package, $7,500 is real money, but it's not a whole lot of money. I will also say that for the amount of work that we put into a startup package, it's at least $10,000 or $15,000 worth of work. But the reason we do it for $7,500 is obviously because entrepreneurs can use the break, but also because even if we didn't do it on a flat fee and we charge you $15,000 or $17,000 for it, we're really not making that much money off of this. What we're trying to do is we're trying to grow the relationship with you so that we can grow together. The more you go raise $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, we're going to get a little piece of that because that's more hours for us and we bill by the hour for that. You go sell your company.
Long-term relationships from cradle to grave. You want to have them on their journey all the way through the journey and help them on that journey.
Yeah, and that's what you want in any lawyer, in any accountant, in any service provider that you use, including your distributors, right? You want somebody who has an interest in you and wants you to succeed. And that's how we see our clients.
That's really powerful what you just said, by the way, with your distributors that have interest in you and want to see you succeed. That I just wanted to repeat that because that's really powerful to a brand. So often they'll get a distributor. Sorry, Roger, I'll let you finish your thoughts. But brand will be upset. I got a distributor to accept me. That might not be a good distributor. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So what does that mean to be accepted? I'm sure as an attorney, you can help them with that journey as well. But go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, that's the exact same point. I mean, that point is applicable to distributors, but also to any service provider that you're using, whether it's a lawyer or an accountant, right? Because we're all busy people, but you want to feel like you are the most important client to that person, right? And so that's what we as a smaller firm are able to do because we're not trying to make, $1 million every month off of KKR or Blackstone. We want to see our small clients succeed to become big clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam, before you even kick it over to me, I'll just piggyback on that. It's something I try and tell. I use flavor houses a lot, or formulators. Anybody that's doing the base level commercial formulations work in this example, but it applies to everybody. It applies to co-packers, it applies to legal partners, it applies to distributors. And the comment to brand owners, and I guess what I'll end on to piggyback off what you said is $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever the number is, as a brand owner, that's your money going out the door. So obviously it feels like, well, this person's making a ton of money on me because from your end, they are. But what you have to realize in any, whatever relationship it is, if you're an early stage brand owner, they're not making money. They're collecting a check, sure, transactionally, but profit wise, there's almost no meat on that bone. Right. So they're not doing it to try and strong arm you or to try and like, oh my God, I made my $5,000. Now I can go home. No, like they're doing it to try and develop a partnership so that in 3 years, when you're still with them and you've 10x'd your production volume, now everybody's making money and we're keeping the lights on and so on and so forth. And so, and it's not to paint brand owners as, inept or as confused about the way things work. It's just to give them a sense of like, hey, don't come to the table feeling like people are taking advantage of you. Come to the table understanding that partnerships in this industry require a financial investment, and that's what you're doing.
Right? Absolutely. So, right on.
That is so powerful what you said. We talk about this all the time, and I have a great appreciation for founders and the guts they have to crawl up in that high dive.
Absolutely.
And jump in the deep end. But, and look, we that's why we founded Bev Assets, Roger, and Adam knows this, is we want to do right by brands. We don't make a lot of money from the people that come to us, but we always tell people that we want to be with you for the long term. So I like your startup package and how you go. So we kind of have that sort of, and they're like, well, how do you do this? Because they have talked to another broker and they're like, that broker's like 20 times more than what you charge. Because we do it because we want to be your partner. We do it because we want to actually see you succeed. We do it because we want to put people to work. So when you said that to me, because you told me the numbers, by the way, what the hourly fee is for attorneys. I don't even remember that the first time we talked. So that is a bargain based on what you told me. So I won't pretend to say what your fees are. It really is. So I want to get that out to the masses. I would a couple of things. One, I got to call Jeff one more time. He said having a strong brand story is essential for building community and being in a place that you can approach investors and distributors. There are so many businesses that don't have the brand identity and strategy worked out. Roger, do you advise clients to get their house in order with their branding? That's the question.
Absolutely. I think branding is hugely important. And I agree with him, having that story, whether it's the brand story or even the founder story, especially for when you're first starting off, you get the founder story, it can be very powerful. In the functional space, right? You have a lot of people who who founded their company because of health issues, right? And that's a good story. We've had people. I have one client who started a all organic vegetable based powder protein. I mean, he founded it because he was looking for a solution for his mom who had cancer, right? I mean, these are great stories to have to say, look, this is why I'm passionate about it. This is why it's going to work, because there's so many more people like me. Like maybe their mom don't have cancer, but there's health issues that aren't being addressed by the PepsiCos and Coca-Colas of the world, or the P&Gs.
Wow. Well, I need to connect you up with Jeff, and you can see in the comments, because Jeff has it's called Building and Unforgettable Brands. I was on a podcast with him yesterday through Firebelly Marketing, which I'll connect you up with Duncan as well. I think there's a lot of people that you can help, Roger, in your space and what you do. And I was really, really appreciative that you're here. I know that you're going to go on an adventure with my friend Adam, because you asked me if I was going. I couldn't get into Expo West, but I know you're going to be there. So you're going to be back in April. We're going to pick a date in April, right?
Definitely.
And both you and Adam can report on your key findings. So definitely exchange information so you two meet and connect while you're out there. I think it's in Anaheim this year.
That's right. So it's down the street for me. It's easy for me.
Yeah.
Adam, you got to fly in.
I was like, yeah, not so much on my side.
Yeah, I think Jeff might be up there too, but I have a lot of friends. Do you know who Jay Williams is? I guess I have to call Jay Williams out. So you should follow him on LinkedIn. But Jay has a product called Freebird. I get nothing for this, by the way, but I just love Jay. But it's a Freebird water. But I don't know if he'll be out there. But Eric Martindale, Duncan, Jay, I'll connect. You guys sing Kumbaya together, smoke some cigars and drink nice whiskey. And I'll be here in cold Minnesota just pouting because I can't get out. So, but thank you so much for joining. Any closing thoughts, Adam or Roger? Are we all good to wrap up?
Yeah, from my side, no, I'm good. I think we talked about a lot of really useful stuff, and yeah, Roger, I just connected with you on LinkedIn. I'd love to meet up out at Expo and tell folks about the bundle you guys offer and all the other ways you can help. So thanks.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed the conversation. Can't wait to be back.
All right, thank you.